Hello and welcome to the Aether Community Meeting today. I'm your host, Denise Barton, and my co-host, Siva Anomaly, and we are excited to have you here today. Joining us for our meeting today is Kajeet, and they will be talking about how they are using the Aether private 5G platform as their foundation for their network as a service offering. You have been placed on mute. So if you would like to ask a question, please use the chat module that should be at the bottom of your screen to type in your question. Following our presenters from Kajeet, we will have a short Q&A session to answer all of your questions. For the final portion of the meeting today, we'll have a community roundtable during which we'll invite everybody to ask questions or make comments related to Aether, share your experiences on how you're using it, and we'll try and get to all of your comments and questions. Now, I'd like to introduce our guest speakers today from Kajeet. We have two speakers. First is Derrick Frost. Derrick is SVP and General Manager of Kajeet's private wireless business. He is also responsible for leading Kajeet's network engineering and operations, cloud and systems management, customer support, project management, and IT. Welcome, Derrick. We also have Dan Rittenhouse. Dan is the Senior Director of Technical Operations at Kajeet. He is responsible for leading the network, cloud, IT, and security teams. Dan's team manages Kajeet's nationwide network that interconnects with Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, US Cellular, and Rogers. And they're responsible for managing Kajeet's cloud-based wireless subscriber and SIM management platform, Sentinel. Welcome both, and please take it away.
Well, good morning. I want to first start off by thanking the Open Networking Foundation for inviting us to be here with you today and share with you, our experience and journey in using Aether as a platform. What we thought we would do today is kind of divide this presentation into two parts. I'll take the first half responsibility and give you a sense of Kajeet as a company, a business, our focus, what we're doing in the whole private wireless, private 5G space, and how Aether has fit into our overall product platform and solution. And then Dan will take it and basically go through some of the more technical details around the implementation of Aether into our environment, some of the enhancements and development that we've done on top of the Aether platform, some of the performance testing we've done, and some of the next steps that we're really looking at and focused on from an overall business perspective. And then, we'd love to, entertain and take any questions that you might have for us at the end here. So let's go to the next slide. So just a high-level overview of Kajeet as a company, because I realize not a lot of people may know specifically what we do and who we are. So we are a leading wireless managed service provider. We've been in operation for nearly 20 years now. We started our company as a MVNO, where we were providing wireless services to kids. And then we pivoted to become an MVNE, where we became the technology provider to many MVNOs that wanted to launch their own wireless services. That side of our business kind of culminated with us supporting the launch of two very big MVNOs that I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, Comcast Xfinity Mobile and the Spectrum Mobile Wireless. We're large customers of ours on the MVNE side of the house for several years. We also have about 3,000 customers nationwide, as you can see on the right-hand side here of this slide, across many different verticals. And those customers are our public wireless customers. A large chunk of those customers are our educational customers. We serve about 2,500 school districts across the country. And over the last 2 years, our business has grown significantly within that segment as those school districts turn to Kajeet to be able to support their distance learning needs during COVID. So we went from roughly about 100,000 lines of service to 500,000 lines of service over the course of about 6 months as we supported a lot of the school districts across the country in building out and providing connectivity to underserved students at home. In addition to our education business, we also service a lot of enterprise customers, big customers on the field services side, like L3 Harris, healthcare like Wake Forest Baptist Health, and then you can see on the telco cable side, Charter, and a lot of the other MSOs. So, our foundation as a company is built in the public wireless business, where, we're partnered with AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, and the other MNOs to be able to, wholesale partners to be able to, deliver connectivity, aggregate their connectivity, provide it to, our customers as kind of a single point of contact. And then we've recently built out our private wireless business, which we'll talk about here over the last 12 to 18 months. And within that business, we've done a lot of deployments in the education space. And, we're partnered obviously with ONF and leveraging the platform to support that, but also have big partners like Samsung, Google, and Bicels. So the start of our journey with ONF and the Aether platform really began earlier this year. We had been leveraging some of our partners' cores for our deployments. We had been evaluating some other third-party commercial cores. And really what we found was that, we didn't like where that marketplace was in terms of, there being, very closed, proprietary, costly solutions that didn't really give us the opportunity to innovate. And so we really went looking for a platform that we could build on top of and integrate a lot of our own core intellectual property into, that would give us the flexibility to develop a leading private wireless solution and platform. And that's where we really found Aether. And once we really started digging into the capabilities of the platform and the extensibility of the platform and the openness of the platform, it really became kind of our future direction going forward. And so since June, we've really been focused on, what I'll call commercializing and productizing the Aether platform to be able to provide it, to our customer base. And what we'll talk about here is how that fits into our overall solution. And Dan will talk about some of the technical details associated with how that's been working. If we go to the next slide, just to give you a sense of, Kajeet Private Wireless, we're really focused on building an open, smart, simple, and secure cloud-based platform so our customers can be able to manage their private 5G and LTE networks. And so, our initial focus and target area is really on the public sector side. So education, K through 12, that customer base that we already have, universities, municipalities are all customers that we're, engaged with and working with today. But, we're rapidly expanding into the enterprise side of the house, the healthcare side of the house, and starting to see some, smart cities types of applications and potential opportunities out there. The thing that, we've been really focused on is establishing partnerships with what we believe are world-class organizations so that we can build world-class products and solutions. So the cornerstone of that is, working with ONF in the Aether platform. But, we also work with closely with Google. They're a partner of ours. And, we did a big announcement with them earlier this year around being part of their private 5G solution portfolio. And Samsung and Bicels are two of our key RAN partners and providers that we've integrated into the Aether platform. Over the course of this year, we've gotten a lot of good feedback and traction in terms of our overall approach and our solution. We were finalists for the Leading Lights Award for Best Public-Private Partnership to Close the Digital Divide, since that's a big area of focus for us. We also just recently won a 2022 Mobile Breakthrough Award for Global Innovation for our wireless platform and solutions. And then Frost & Sullivan recognized us for best practices in delivering private 5G solutions into the education space. And we highlight these because we think it's important for folks to understand the capabilities that ONF Aether is providing us to allow us to be able to win these types of awards and have this type of recognition. So quickly here, without getting into a lot of detail, on the right-hand side, our focus is really, we have the tagline Private Wireless Simplified. right? We want to make it as easy as 1, 2, 3, 4 for any customer to be able to deploy their own private wireless solution. One of the things that drove us to Aether as a platform is when we looked at a lot of the other core edge platforms, they were really tailor-made more for the carrier marketplace and MNOs, and they were complex and costly and hard to enclose and hard to really build on top of. And Aether gave us the foundation that alleviated a lot of those things to make us be able to have a simple platform that's more enterprise focused, built on top of kind of an SDN type of model that's really easy, flexible for us to develop on. We're providing an end-to-end platform and solution to our customers. So we provide everything from the design and the installation of the network to the actual equipment, from the radio, the core, the edge, the cloud solution that's built on top of what we call our Sentinel platform and integrating in the Aether platform, which I'll show in a moment. And then we provide, all the SIMs that are needed for our customers to be able to have a turnkey solution. And we provide kind of the end-to-end managed services. All of this delivered from the cloud. As I mentioned, we're partnering with Google on the cloud side of the house. So we built the entire Aether platform, within the Google Cloud environment. And then we've integrated in, a lot of our own other wireless platforms and systems that we have. The whole idea here is an open ecosystem. We support multiple RAN vendors. We provide open APIs. We don't want our customers to have any kind of vendor lock-in, so to speak, and all this as something that we can deliver as a service, and then in a cost-efficient way. Being able to deliver carrier class platform in a very cost-effective way, we feel this gives us kind of a disruptive approach to the marketplace compared to a lot of the other solutions that are out there. So I won't go into a lot of detail on this slide. I provide it so that you understand a lot of the other components that we're bringing to the table relative to the overall solution. So bottom left-hand side, you guys are probably familiar with kind of Aether as kind of the core, for lack of a better term, of the solution, and providing kind of the core, the edge components and the manageability around those pieces. But we've also integrated that solution into a lot of our other components that we provide customers from a wireless perspective. So we've got our whole, what we call Sentinel Shield, which is a whole security platform that does intrusion detection and blocking and provides a lot of the firewall type capabilities. We've got, direct access, which is a VPN type of solution that we integrated with this platform. Sentinel Insights is our whole dashboard in terms of providing big data and analytics to our customers so that they can see on a per device, per subscriber group basis, kind of what the customers are using, where they're going. We built a lot of alerts and notifications into this. And then control factors in terms of being able to do policy management. We provide content filtering, and then we also provide in-device security. The unique aspect of our solution in terms of how we've integrated this together is that we can support both public and private networks together in one single pane of glass. So the same platform that our 3,000 customers use to manage the public connectivity and their wireless network with Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, and others, they can now integrate in their own private network capabilities, manage their SIMs, manage their devices, and manage their network associated with that. So, we're not doing a demo or anything today, so I give you the screenshot demo, so to speak. On the left-hand side here, you kind of see our Sentinel platform, which was our existing public wireless platform that we use to manage, our overall solution offering to our customers. As I indicated, that solution provides SIM and device management. It provides hybrid network connectivity. It allows us to be able to provision to all of our MNO partners. And then, we can incorporate and leverage and use all of the security, firewall, intrusion detection components that we have, content filtering, analytics, and then it's all open API, so we can very easily integrate other systems components into it. And that's what we've done with Aether. We've essentially taken Aether on the right-hand side which has its own kind of SIM device management backend capabilities, with its also with the network management, slice management, QoS capabilities. And we've combined these two solutions together to be able to provide one seamless end-to-end private 5G platform, for our customers. We've just recently gotten through what we call phase 2 development of the Aether platform. Phase 1 for us was kind of proof of concept, to be able to look at the features, functionality, to make sure that we felt it had all the key capabilities that we wanted and we needed to be able to provide to our customers. We completed, phase 1 probably in a July, August timetable, and for the last 2-3 months we've been doing phase 3, which is the production version, and hardening the Aether platform, developing new features and capabilities on top of it, resolving some of the bugs and some of the performance challenges that we've seen, to be able to get us to a commercial grade solution. We just completed that phase 2 development several weeks ago, and so now we're actually in the process of deploying the Aether platform to be able to support some of the customer opportunities that we have lined up within our pipeline. With that, I'll kind of pivot and hand it over to Dan, and Dan will kind of go through some more of the technical details of what we've been working through as it relates to our whole Aether journey, and kind of where we're at, where we're going, and how we plan to work with the overall community here going forward. Dan?
Thank you, Derrick. Yeah, so I was going to jump right into what our Aether journey looks like here. As Derrick spoke, it's definitely been a journey. Phase 1 was us just proof of concept and get familiar with the technology, etc. And so as we went into this phase 2, it was really to operationalize and get it ready to be able to deploy to production. So let's talk a little bit about that journey. Right. So first we looked at scaling and our abilities to be able to scale the product out and our redundancy. So we did some benchmarking and found that we were able to support about 400 UEs or eNodeBs, sorry, and about 100,000 attached UEs. And what we needed to do to be able to support that was we had to have SROV enabled. We had, when we first started out, we ran into issues with running more than one UPF. So there were a few bugs we had to resolve with that. And we got through that and we're able to use 4 UPFs to reach this scale. And we also ran into some challenges with, so as Derrick mentioned, we're partnered with Google, and we actually use Google to do our orchestration and deployment of the Aether platform. So we're using it to manage all the Kubernetes components and everything. So that was critical in us being able to care and feed for this going forward. However, we did run into some issues with features and functions we needed on the Anthos platform to support Aether. And what we did is we enabled some configurations on our NICs that allowed us to have HA on the MME. That was some work we did with Google. They supported us very well in that endeavor. Another issue we ran into, one of our RANs that we certified was Samsung. And Samsung needed a very specific port to do its S1 authentication on. And that was not really supported in the configuration that Anthos was set up to date. So we had to come up with a workaround for that. So we set up an F5 load balancer and implemented that in the Google Cloud platform. And Google worked with us on that, and we worked through all the technical issues there and validated that solution, and it did work. So that was a fantastic find. Would have been nice if they had supported that natively, but we worked through it, and now it works. And through this process, we've demonstrated that we can deploy a large number of clients and manage them through the Aether platform. So a lot of the work that went into this phase 2 was just operational, making sure that we could manage things, we could deploy provision IMEIs, things like that. And then validating that once we made all these changes that under load, everything still worked and everything fed back into Grafana and we were able to get the visibility that we needed. So let's talk a little bit about the provisioning of subscribers and SIMs. We did have to develop a new API to support the HSS subscriber, some backend issues that we encountered, and being able to do that through the ROC dashboard, and then that API being able to manage those components afterwards. And we also had to develop features for having third-party systems consume data from those ROC APIs. And some of those are for our support reps. So we wanted to make sure that they could update subscriber information, including APN values, things like that. So that was some development we did on top of Aether already. And then we had to make sure that the SIMs could be provisioned via the ROC dashboard with no issues. There were some issues with that originally. And as a matter of fact, I think we've still got one bug laying out there. It's not a showstopper, but we resolved all the other bugs that were causing us issues there. And then operational capabilities. So as we are certifying these RAN vendors to work with Aether, we have found that not all of these things look the same. So as I said, with Samsung, we ran into an issue with the way that they do SCTP and what protocol or what ports they use need to be supported. We also found that some eNode Bs, like the BiCells, don't have out-of-the-box implementations for SNMP the way that we need to consume them. I'll say it that way. I mean, they did have some SNMP, but not the way we needed to consume them. So we had to develop some new MIBs to be able to consume that data back into our logging and monitoring infrastructure, which is Datadog. And then we have some customers that would like to be able to consume that data as well. So that allowed us to have the operational visibility and management over these BiCell eNode Bs. Another thing that we had to develop was the operational monitoring of all the other components that are just core to Aether feeding back into Datadog. Because those are basically open metrics underneath the covers, that really wasn't too much of a challenge. We were able to do that pretty easily. And then of course we used the Grafana dashboards that kind of come out of the box with Aether and just tweaked and tuned those a little bit. Okay, so that's where we are to date. Now, the functionality enhancements that we had thrown on top of this, I thought I'd list them out here a little bit just to set the field for any questions that might come up here. So we did have to implement new enhancements for supporting virtual APNs because we know that's going to be needed for multi-tenancy and the ability to be able to define gateway-specific APNs. That has been developed. We also needed to be able to support static IPs, and you would think that that's not really that big of a deal, but we actually have some add-on features that we add to Aether with our web filtering and our policy enforcement, things that we do as Sentinel proper. And for those to work, we needed to be able to support static IPs because some of our carriers just do not handle dynamic IPs at all. We support all of the top 10 mobile carriers in the United States and Canada, so they don't all behave the same. So we had to be able to accommodate some of them. And let's talk about Anthos just a minute. So Anthos is how we are managing and deploying our infrastructure. We ran into some challenges there, I'll say. However, the Google team, the Google Center of Excellence team has worked with us very closely to work through a lot of those issues. The Anthos deployment has to this point gotten us to where we can rinse and repeat a deployment pretty easily. There's still a couple of very small things, like for instance, the local database that stores credentials for the rock. We need to iron that out. But for all of the mobile edge computing components that are required to deliver Ether, it's managing those today, and everything looks good there. And the other thing that we had to do was we had to put a little bit of audit logging in place just from a security perspective. And I think I got a comment later that there's a little more we need to do there. Okay, so we ran into some bugs. As I said, there was an issue where at first, if we tried to run multiple UPFs, we'd have a 30% packet loss. And how we resolved that was we basically did some CPU pinning. It might not be the most eloquent solution, but it has solved that problem for us as it is today. I think there's some work we may do in the future to optimize that a bit. But that paired with our static IP implementation, we're kind of having to pin UPFs to CPUs in the cluster. Another issue we ran into was the inability to delete UPFs. That has been since resolved, and I think that was about it. And then the other thing is the API layer. So we've had to develop quite a few API and new custom APIs that will allow us to manage things the way that Kajeet needs to manage them. We are currently in the process right now of doing some more integration with our Sentinel platform, so that if any of you are familiar with Sentinel, you know that is where you go and manage everything Kajeet. So I can go provision a SIM, I can provision a filter group and everything. So we want to make sure that we maintain that single pane of glass for our customers. So we've had to develop some APIs to enable that platform to communicate and manage the Kajeet private wireless implementations as well. Okay. Performance testing. So like I said, we were able to achieve 4 UPFs running on this infrastructure. And we tested them out with an implementation of like 4 UEs, 8 UEs, 12 UEs, different configurations. And what we found was under the configuration of using small packets, we weren't able to get nearly as much throughput. So we'd be able to get about 250 megabits per second of throughput when we're using small packets. However, the medium packets and the large packets kind of scale linearly. So when we were using a medium packet size, we were able to attain 3 gigs per second, and a large packet size, we were able to achieve 8.9. So those scaled pretty linearly, but the small packet size performance is not that great. So probably not a use case that would be exactly what you'd see in production, but we tested all 3 of those, and we feel that's good enough for now. And especially considering we are using the AF packet and not the DPDK. One of the reasons for that is we ran into some issues with the custom CNI that's delivered right now with Aether actually being supported by Anthos. So for now, that's where we're at. We have ambitions to attack those problems in the future. So let's talk about the future. Next steps. We still have some bugs to resolve. So as an example, provisioning at scale, the Rock UI has a limitation. The way that it was developed, there's a limitation that the payload that comes through to provision SIMs is too large to provision more than about 900 SIMs at one given time. So for us to be at scale, we need to fix that problem. Also, there's a lot of stuff around security. So the key cloak that is delivered with Aether needs some tweaking and tuning and some policies and procedures that we've got to develop. So we've been working on that, and the database there that stores that information, we need to put some operational controls around that by backing it up, being able to redeploy it with Aether. I'm sorry, with Anthos, sorry. And then the other, we've got a small bug where you're unable to delete a SIM via the Rock UI. That one, we just didn't get that one done. So we think that will be taken care of soon. And then some of the operational enhancements, the database is not receiving SIM and device values. That's, again, I think this is pertaining to that maximum packet size. So that's in progress. and then automated SIM provisioning. So the automated SIM provisioning is something that we're working with our Sentinel platform and the components in Aether that need to support it. So that's the new enhancements we're looking at on the horizon. And the performance improvements that we'd like to work on is getting to the point where we can do 30,000 UEs. Theoretically, we think the platform can do it, but we have not done that benchmarking enough to say we're comfortable attesting to that. And then the other thing is just redundancy. We need to achieve redundancy at every single system component. I mean, I think there are something like 30 components here in this solution, and we need to walk through every single one of them and just make sure that they are redundant, and we have a solution to not only if they fail, the redundancy recovers from that failure, and then if we have a catastrophic failure, we can rebuild it with no problems. And then there's obviously some security enhancements we want to work on. The integration with our IDP platforms, both Azure AD and Okta. Right now, all the authentication is local. We want to attack that next. And there's just some further analysis we need to do on the securing of this in a production environment. Okay. And there are some solution enhancements that we want to make as well. And these are not really in scope for phase 4, but probably 4.5 or 5. And those are, we want to integrate with Ruckus and Airspan. There's a few RAN vendors that are on the horizon besides those, but just continue to rinse and repeat that certification of the RANs, because the story that or the promise that Aether brings to us is the ability for us to be RAN agnostic. And so that just means us certifying every single one of these RANs, and it's been pretty smooth so far. The other thing we want to do is implement a version of our Kajeet private wireless solution that is not on Google Anthos. And the reason for that is because with Anthos, obviously you have to have a minimum of 3 nodes in the cluster to get your redundancy. And some of our customers, that might be a little too heavy for them. So we need a kind of a standalone, smaller tenant solution, and we're working on that actually right now. That's not in 5. We're working on that today. And then there's some issues with the multi-tenancy. I think that was discussed on a community meeting before, but yeah, there's some issues we got to resolve there. And then we want to be able to provide a application developer platform so that we can easily allow our customers to deploy their own workloads on the mobile edge computing platform that Aether runs on today. And just for the record, we're going to be the first ones to really consume that. We'll eat our own dog food, as they say. And then a fully cloud hosted version of this as well. We don't feel like that's a hard one to do, but we are not 100% sure how many of our customers really need that solution. So that one's kind of still in the air. And then just maturity around the caring and feeding of this open source platform. We will, the next slide, I'll talk to what we will and won't contribute back and whatnot, but there's just some real thought that needs to go into that, and we'll work with the technical steering team and at ONF to work out what that procedure looks like and how we really donate back to this open source community. And one of the things that we'd like to spend some time on is getting on a current OS platform, getting it validated, and some automated test frameworks around it. And that's about it. There are some other interesting ways that we're utilizing Aether. I thought I might talk about those. Where Moken is a really hot topic in wireless today, and we're working on some pilots with a Moken vendor to provide a Moken gateway on top of Aether. Very interesting project. We're doing some of those proof of concepts with higher ed right now. And that's about it. Now, the question you might ask, I think actually somebody may have already asked this in the questions area, so I already had it in my deck. I'll speak to it. we've identified 15 bugs, and we'll be contributing those back to the mainline code base. But we're still working through how to contribute back new features and enhancements and make sure that they are able to be cared and fed for. Because obviously, that's intellectual property we're throwing on top of the open source community. And we don't want to just throw it out there and cause demand on the community to support those if we're the only one that's ever going to use it. So there's some things we need to work through there with the community to make sure we're contributing in a positive way. All right, I'll stop there.
Great. Thank you very much for that and very informative presentation. We do have a number of questions that we can go through. The first question was, what is the scaling numbers of a single deployment? I know, Dan, that you had mentioned that in a lab that you had 400 ENO-Bs and about 10,000 UEs, but I think this may be more of what you've deployed in a production network, the scaling numbers.
Yeah, like I mentioned, we've theoretically, we think it'll support 30,000 UEs the way that we've developed it today. And that's just with the spec that we've built as far as our hardware implementation and the configurations that we have. I mean, if you look at the Pronto project, they kind of attest that it'll go much larger than that. But I mean, with the implementation that we have today and the information we've gotten so far off of our benchmarking, we can attest to, we can support 400 ENO-Bs no problem, and up to 10,000 UEs no problem. We just really haven't done enough testing after that to say where that limit is.
Okay, very good. Siva, would you like to take over asking the questions here then?
Yeah, happy to do that. The next one's from Benjamin Branch. Benjamin asked a question about how do you handle training with the technology moving so fast? And do you use Google to integrate in the cloud? I think you answered some of that in your slides, but maybe you can add some color around that, either Dan or Derrick.
Yeah, so I'll speak to the what we use in the cloud. So yes, we use Google Anthos to manage the infrastructure itself. And look, that's a double-edged sword, right? So we have to rely on what Google will provide to us as far as orchestration. However, their tool set is pretty mature. It was mature enough for us to go ahead and move forward. So I would say Google's been a pretty good partner for us in that regard.
Okay, great. I think Benjamin had a follow-on question about how can one partner with Kajeet? I see some dollars flowing here.
Yeah,
Derrick,
so
that's
so I mean, great question, because I think that's, as I talked about earlier, we've got a lot of different partners. So we've got technology partners that we work with, like ONF, obviously, Google and Samsung, that are kind of contributing kind of technology solution support that we integrate into our overall platform. And then we've got various different business partners and channel partners that we work with, right? So if there are, folks, companies that, want to be able to leverage the Kajeet solution to be able to provide, private 5G services, to their customers, they can sign up with us as a channel partner and be able to leverage all of the technology platform solution services we bring to the table to be able to offer to, their customers. So, we're very flexible from that perspective. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. We actually just did a PR announcement today of our channel partner program. So, we're very excited about that, because, we see that as the best avenue to kind of get this solution spread as wide as possible. Enterprises that already have existing customer relationships, customers that they're working with working us to be able to, provide the private 5G solution. And, the way that we kind of see ourselves within the Aether community, I know a lot of the focus within Aether is kind of on R&D type efforts and things that people are doing, in addition to some commercial. we're clearly focused on kind of the commercial side and really, how do we commercialize and productize and add the features and enhancements on top of the platform that allows it to be, a solution that, we feel comfortable going in and providing, to the various different industry verticals that, want to be able to leverage this for their mission critical applications and services.
Great. Thank you. Good answers. Jayaprakash asked a couple of questions. Can you brief about the use cases you've achieved with ONF and help with some KPIs achieved? I think you had a little bit of information on the slides, but maybe some more color there.
Yeah, so I mean, in terms of use cases, our main use case that we're focused on really is, coverage and capacity. So a lot of our customers, if you think about, what I talked about earlier, we work with a lot of school districts, across the country. One of the things that they saw from COVID was that there's a lot of, of the students that don't have broadband connectivity at home. And so, we have a lot of customers that are building their own wireless networks across a metropolitan area, across a school district area to be able to serve underserved students and community members. And so the use case there really is kind of a digital divide type use case, closing the broadband gap, and really just about using, private 5G, CBRS to be able to provide, mobile wireless services to a home. Then, we're starting to get into more smart city type of use cases, right? Where, we're seeing cities and municipalities, especially with, federal funding that's coming down from the Infrastructure Act that's kind of funding, cities' ability to build out networks. They're looking to build out their own smart city networks, right? Where, they can leverage it to support kind of public services, police, fire, emergency responder type services, be able to give them a redundant network from the existing kind of public wireless network that they have. And so that's one of the areas that we're highly engaged with. One of the real interesting areas, kind of an offshoot of that, Dan mentioned, is stuff we're doing in higher ed. So universities, they're kind of a microcosm of smart cities. They've got all these infrastructure on campus, whether it's housing that they have to support, or whether it's, stuff that they're doing on campus to support a lot of the R&D initiatives. So, we're starting to get some real traction there in the university space. One of the use cases that we're very actively working on with our M&O partners is the neutral host network. So how do our, university customers, build their own CBRS private wireless networks that can solve some of the in-building coverage issues that they see on campus right now, and, reduce the OpEx and the CapEx costs that they currently use to support, say, DAS type systems, and, complement DAS in a way that is, more cost effective. And so we're, just starting to do some trials now with that, leveraging Moken as a solution integrated in with our overall private wireless network to interconnect with the MNOs to support that.
Great, thank you. I'll go a little out of order on some of the questions here, but there was an interesting question regarding 6G. Given all the hype around 5G, is 6G something that's going to require a complete re-architecting effort, or what does that look like to you guys?
Yeah, it just honestly, we're so consumed with LTE and 5G right now, we haven't really looked at 6G per se. We're hoping that the community here, the broader community in ONF is participating and looking at some of those things that will ultimately be able to get brought into. But yeah, 6G is not really something that we're intimately focused on. There's so much opportunity right now in front of us just with traditional LTE, and then our customers wanting to be able to have a seamless path to move from 4G, which is predominant deployments today, to 5G. And so most of our efforts is focused on solving that issue.
So Derrick, I will say though, our experience with the Aether platform as it is today, I think lays the groundwork for us to easily adopt that if we need to. because really it means swapping out the UPF component to a 6G capable component and maybe just a little bit of development on the control side. So again, the platform tailors to be able to adopt that fairly easy. So when our customers have a real need for that, I think it won't be too much of a heavy lift to be able to adopt that. And I think that was the real question he was asking was, would it be a heavy lift? And I don't think so.
Yeah, and certainly from an architecture perspective, Aether was designed with a lot of modularity and flexibility to be able to move from 4G to 5G. And since we don't really know what 6G looks like, it's hard to say at this point in time. But hopefully that modularity and flexibility serves us well moving forward. Another question regarding IPAM support. What's going on? What's going on in that area, Dan?
Yeah, so the IPAM support. Aether doesn't call it that specifically, but there is the ability to define device groups, which lends itself to IP address management. We have a tool that we use in the back end to do a little augmentation on top of that. So I think there's some opportunity there. Yeah, I think it's something we should talk about in the community because the capability to provision it is there, but to really manage it, nah, I wouldn't say that it's there yet. So there's some opportunity there.
Yeah, you know, I think with every bit of software developed, whether in the open source or private, you know, when you start using it, you figure out, oh, I guess we need, you know, there's some different use cases here that we have to deal with. So we're going to have to evolve. Not sure whether this one's better targeted at Derrick or Dan, but the production time frame and approximate costs and expected ROI. And we'll need that to 3 decimal places, please.
You know, my boss put you up to that question, didn't he? Yeah, no, good question. So, like I said, we just finished phase 2 development a couple of weeks ago, which was our, you know, productizing this, that we feel comfortable actually putting it out in real world customer locations. And so we've got several deployments that we'll be doing here over the next, you know, several weeks, right? That kind of kick things off. So by the time we have the next, you know, community meeting, you know, we should be able to give some real world examples of some very interesting environments that we're going into. I think, you know, we kind of hinted to it to a certain extent. We've got some large school districts, we've got some municipalities, we've got some universities that we're working with, and a couple of enterprises that will be focused on, in particular, in the healthcare hospital realm. So you know, we'll have some very interesting, hopefully, examples that we can talk about of, you know, Aether actually kind of supporting those different type of customers and different kinds of use cases, and what we're seeing thus far. You know, as far as kind of the, you know, ROI and things like that, I mean, quite honestly, one of the reasons we selected to go with the Aether platform is to give us more control over those things. So when we were looking at the existing core commercial solutions that were out there, you know, from the usual suspects, I won't mention any names, but, you know, they tended to be fairly costly. So from the overall business model perspective, in terms of making the business model work for our customers, it became a challenge because the core component was one of the most costly components in the equation, especially as you scaled up to be able to support tens of thousands of customers. And so what ONF and Aether has given us is, you know, a platform that, you know, we can, you know, we feel is more kind of an enterprise focus. It fits kind of more of the enterprise financial model, and allows us to kind of have a return on investment associated to providing it to our customers, but also gives our customers the ability to get into, you know, a carrier class type of platform without having to spend the typical costs that you would see from, you know, some of the commercial core and edge platforms that are out there today.
Gotcha. Okay. From Jay Prakash, wanted to understand, are virtual APNs and static IPs part of Aether 1.2? You know, I think you mentioned something about static IP support earlier, and AJ, you can chime in on this one as well as part of the development team for Aether.
Okay, so we do have the Address allocation support in the control plane as well as in the user plane. I have not quite understood the virtual APN concept here mentioned by Derrick. So maybe, I mean, if they're open, they can probably let us know what exactly. So then I can comment it. But as a base code, whatever is available in the open source, we do support multiple APNs. And I understood from the slide deck presented by Derrick is that the static IP pool per APN is what they have added extra support, which was missing, looks like. And if question is about 1.2 release, then we are still lagging in terms of static address allocation in the 5G area, which is the SMF side. But since UPF is common, if UPF based address allocation is used, we are good. But that's something we will be doing it in the upcoming releases, just to make sure that both 4G and 5G, they are aligned. Yeah. So as of now, with the 5G, this support doesn't exist, static address allocation. With the 4G, it exists. And multiple APN support exists in both 4G and 5G. But virtual APN, I really don't know what exactly, how that is different than the normal APNs.
Dan or Derrick, anything to add there?
Yeah, I think we might want to take that one offline and work with AJ on that. It might be something that we could contribute back, explain why we did it, and then maybe we could contribute that back in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, sounds like a great topic for the TST meetings. Understand the use and what makes sense. Okay. Right. Arun asked, are the pools shared across multiple tenants, or are there separate pods for each tenant?
Okay, I'll take that one. So again, Aether is flexible. We could do both. However, right now we're not crossing the streams, if you will. So on the control plane, we're managing from a multi-tenant perspective, but on the user plane, yeah, we're not crossing the streams there in any way, shape, or form.
I like the Ghostbusters reference there. Cool. Listen, there's another question, asking about, do you need a small edge solution? Sounds like you guys, I think you mentioned that you're looking for smaller scalability, being able to scale down cost effectively. Maybe some thoughts on where that investigation's leading you?
Derrick, you want to take that one? I know we've had some customers that have talked about this.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at kind of what we've kind of developed initially, right, we've really focused on developing more of a carrier grade type of edge solution that has, high availability and redundancy, as Dan talked about. And so there's a cost associated with that, right, in terms of the number of servers and equipment and things that we have to deploy in order to be able to support that. And so, one of the things that we're realizing is that some of our customers aren't as interested in having kind of a high cost, high availability edge solution, just given the use case that they have. And so we're looking to be able to scale that down to kind of, what I'll call a slimmer edge, right? So a more low cost edge solution that Aether can run on, that doesn't, increase the overall cost of investment that's needed by our customers for, servers to be able to support that. So, we're currently actively looking at that. I mean, the model today, when you look at kind of Aether in a box and the fact that it can run on, various different, a laptop or, a server, we think, gives us the capability to do it. So we're just working to come up with the right solution that gives us the balance of performance, because we know that's important for our customers, as well as kind of, cost. And Dan and team are, kind of actively looking at that as kind of the next phase. The other phase is, being able to run it for us in the cloud, right? So some customers maybe don't need an on-premise edge, to be able to support their use cases. They're happy to be able to have kind of a cloud-based solution. And so, that's part of kind of our next phase roadmap here that we're working on.
Yeah, I know. Go ahead, Dan.
I was going to say, it was very interesting. We were talking to a potential customer recently, and I was caught off guard by the fact that their availability was not a concern. I mean, to some degree, right? But they were mentioning that, look, they don't need 5 nines. If a piece of hardware breaks and it can get out there in the next 24 hours and they're offline for 24 hours, they're okay with that. And I think originally we didn't take that into account. You know, they're more cost conscious than nines conscious. So we've got some customers that are in that boat.
Yeah, and certainly, you know, I've worked with carrier grade reliability most of my career, and it can be a very costly endeavor to achieve each successive 9. It's not a linear increase in cost. So coming down in terms of availability and repairability can often really help the situation. Okay, we're getting towards the top of the hour, and appreciate the questions that have followed, the answers there. Maybe we'll follow up with one more question about some implementations of Kajeet in the manufacturing sectors. Can you tell us a little bit about what's going on there?
Yeah, so I mean, we're not working in manufacturing yet,
Okay.
and I say yet because, you know, our focus has been kind of more public sector, K through 12 universities, municipalities, and then kind of getting into some of the healthcare areas. But like I talked about, we're bringing on partners today that have customers in the manufacturing space. One of our partners, I won't name them, but you know, they're dealing with a big cardboard manufacturing company, you know, that has a lot of different plants, and we're looking at opportunities to be able to leverage and use Aether as kind of a connectivity platform in manufacturing. One of the things that, you know, appealed us about this platform is that, you know, the cross vertical nature of it, right? So that the same underlying solution that we're using to kind of tackle our public sector use cases can be leveraged and used for smart cities, can be leveraged and used for manufacturing, warehousing, and what have you, you know, kind of industry 4.0 type of solution. So you know, we're really partnering with others that have those existing relationships in manufacturing, understand those business use cases, because what we've seen is not really just about the connectivity piece, it's really about the application piece on top of that as well. So you're going into a manufacturing plant, yeah, connectivity is important, but what's the, you know, industrial IoT applications that you add on top of that that can integrate in with their management system, so I can be able to monitor, say, vibration across, you know, devices, or, you know, be able to integrate in with my robotic system that's doing a lot of the automation within the factory. And so, you know, that requires a whole nother level of integration that's more the application layer that, you know, other partners have those core capabilities already versus us trying to recreate that.
And just like you were asked the ROI question, those manufacturing companies will be asked the ROI question of why are we doing this? So yeah, you know, I think it is spot on. Let me let's wrap it up. Let me turn back to Denise for any closing comments.
Great, thank you, Siva. Actually, what I'd like to do now is open up for the community roundtable. The community roundtable is an opportunity for anyone to participate, ask a question, make a comment about their experiences with Aether. We also have AJ and Siva from our technical team who can, if you have questions about how Aether works, etc., you can ask those questions. So we invite anybody to ask a question. To ask a question, simply enter the question into using the Q&A module. And in this portion of the meeting, what I will do then is unmute you one by one so that you can interface directly with the person trying to answer the question and ask any clarifying questions. So please, if anybody would like to ask a question about Aether, please do so, and I will unmute you. I don't know if anybody, I see a question, it was probably from the previous session. I don't know if we have an answer to this. What is the current latency between 2 UEs within the same private network? I don't know if we have, if that's something, AJ, that we may have tested in the lab and we may have an answer to.
So typically in our lab, when we had done the setup, we were not allowing the UE to UE communication. So that was something prevented and was not allowed from the security point of view.
Yep. That makes
But
sense.
if it is like, typically it will be always talk about one UE to some other internet server, or maybe if it is other UE in the other network, but not within the same network. So, and we don't have that setup to try out the test case as such, yeah.
Benjamin, I see that you have a question. If you do have a question, please type it in and then I will unmute you. We're trying out this new process here for how to make sure we don't get all kinds of crosstalk during the community part of the meeting. But we do invite folks to ask questions. Benjamin, it sounds like you have a question. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you now.
Hello, how you doing? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
My question is, just I know it's a long-winded answer, but are there any major cybersecurity challenges that come to mind?
Dan, I think you covered some of that in the slides at a high level. I don't know if you want to talk about some of the, some of the deeper challenges you're facing.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you the real challenge is just making sure that we lock everything down. And I really, I wouldn't feel comfortable saying what might be open or not right now that we need to close. But there are a few small things. And the other thing that's interesting is that, there is some role-based access controls that comes out of the box with Keycloak. So we, however, found that we need more granularity than that. So we're having to do some development on top of that.
Okay, thank you very much. I do have one more quick question, if that's okay.
Sure.
Do you see any potential long-term competition with the mobile to satellite connectivity that Elon Musk and some of the other telecoms are starting to experiment with?
Well, I'll take that one if nobody else is. Yes, honestly, in this space, there are so many people in this space that almost everybody's a competitor. So, I mean, there's just a lot of attention and hype and really cool things happening in this arena with private wireless. So, yeah, is that competition? Yeah. Will it be always? Don't know.
Yeah, I think the key from our perspective and what we see is like, look, there's all kinds of options. Like our base business is built on working on the public wireless, partnering with, the biggest MNOs that are out there today, and they provide a lot of options to customers today. But one of the things that, we see customers wanting is control, right? They want to be able to control and manage their own networks. They want to be able to have kind of, for security purposes, close off the networks. And so I think there'll always be options for customers to have, different connectivity, whether it's, traditional route, whether it's Wi-Fi, whether it's satellite or what have you. But, the one thing from this perspective, private 5G gives customers some control, gives them some benefits over traditional Wi-Fi deployments, and allows them to basically build their own cellular network without the traditional high costs associated with that. So I think private wireless, private 5G will always have kind of a space. But as Dan said, then there's a bunch of people that, like ourselves, Kajeet, that can provide you that, and other people that can provide you that. So there's competition there. But I think the thing that is key is private wireless as a solution set, I think, is starting to come into its own. And hopefully over the next 12, 24 months, we'll really see that accelerate as, we get through a lot of the pilots that people are doing. We're seeing real scale commercial deployments out in the marketplace, and we can show some of the benefits of, private wireless over some of the other competing technologies and solutions.
Yeah, I'll add to that, Derrick. One of our value propositions is we're providing private wireless, but we're also providing public wireless. And what value proposition Kajeet has is the ability to make that management of that easy, but also have continuity across those different solutions. So I can have the same filter set, web filtering policies on my private wireless solution as I can on my public wireless solution. And our public wireless solution is actually a closed network as well. So now you've got your public network and your private network all in a closed network that I have complete control of. And the ease of management, we feel, I mean, I'll talk for Kajeet, is better than anybody else out on the market right now.
Thank you. Any other questions? Either for our guest from Kajeet or for our technical team here from ONF about Aether? Okay, if not, I'm going to conclude this webinar. Thank you for joining us today. This meeting, as I said earlier, was recorded, and we will share the video as well as Kajeet's slides with you in the next week or so. Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you to our guests, Derrick and Dan, for a terrific presentation. AJ Siva, thank you for joining us today and helping answer some of the technical questions related to Aether. And hope everyone has a great day. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for having us.